Okay, I've gone through these. I've assigned them all to be ambient noise, and I've messed with the gain on these to kind of get them to be even, because some were louder than others to get them so they're kind of consistent throughout. Things like when she stands up and walks away, things like that we want to leave in there. But let's do this. Now I can grab, because I'm going to do all the same things to the ambient features on here. I'm going to select these, and I've selected all these, and it shows that all these have had the ambient feature added to it, because it does not give me the option to add them. So they've all been added. So now what I've done, now what I'm going to do next is add a little bit of reverb to it. This is going to be very, very subtle, by the way, but just reverb is, we're going to tell this that this is in just regular room ambience, and it adds just a slight echo to it. It's going to be very subtle, and I can select this and kind of turn it on and off while I'm playing to hear it. Just hear a slight shift there, but I am going to do that. Adds a little natural, it makes it feel like a natural reverb for inside. I'm going to save my progress, Control S, and now we're set to start adding sound effects. Now we're set to start adding other ambient noises. Some other ambient noises we might want to add are some outside noises, because we would hear outside noises because the window is open, but these are going to be subtle on the inside. So there's some crickets that we could add. I've got another one here. I like those more consistent crickets here. Those aren't so loud and just over the top there. So I'm going to grab that cricket there, that cricket sound, and I'm going to move down here to my timeline. I'm going to start the crickets when my credits start here. So I'm going to arrow down and start it right here. I'm going to change my source patching to this channel right here, the channel 2. I'm going to use this one for my next sound effects file. I'm going to hit period to drop in that whole thing, because this isn't very long. So it takes up about half the project there, so it doesn't take up the entire project. I'm going to go to the beginning, do Control-Shift-D to fade in. My crickets fade in. I'm going to get them a little bit louder when it starts here. And by the way, this is how you change your audio, and this is how you change it. This is how you keyframe it. I'm going to move my mouse down over here. By the way, if your timeline looks small like this, you want to hit Shift plus and increase the track height so you can have access to the keyframer here. I'm going to move my mouse over this here. I'm going to hold down Alt and scroll up and make this larger. I'm going to do a keyframe. I'm going to hold down Control, and it brings up this little plus button. From here to here, and it's going to go from louder to quieter. So I want this a little bit louder to start with over here, so I'm going to crank that up. And then as it moves into the room, it fades down. I'm going to turn this down here, so it's just kind of in the background. Now you still have those crickets going there, but they're very subtle and in the background. So I'm going to put my cricket noises in. When it goes outside, what's going to happen is the crickets are going to get louder. So I'm going to arrow down until I get to this edit right here where she sticks her head out the window. I'm going to hit C for my razor tool, and I'm going to cut this and go over here and cut this, and I'm going to grab the middle here. Actually, we can just select this clip, and we can just say G for gain, and we're going to increase it by, I don't know, 10 decibels. Let's see if that's too loud. Now as it plays from the inside to the outside here, they turn up and the indoor noise is gone now, because now we're outside. Now it cuts back inside. I already have that. This one I didn't gain. So I'm going to move this over and get it right to the side there, because this is the other point where she sticks her head out the window. So I'm going to hold down Alt. I'm going to bring over this gained one here and lock it right there to the edge. Zoom up to this, plus, plus. Let's make this a little bit longer, right to that edge there, because that's where she sticks her head back in the window. Now I can hold down Alt and pull this over. And if we want to make this last entire one, I can just grab this, drag it down, because I have extra on the end here. Get it locked to the end of my credits. And lock this to the end of my credits there, right there. And now I can back time this and see if I have enough. I do. I've got enough to cover that entire thing there. So now it will go louder outside. And then quieter as it cuts back inside. So here at the end, when the movie ends, I might want to bring the cricket noises back up again. So just over time. So I'm going to hold down Control and hit a keyframe here at the end of her, at the end of where that cuts out, and I'm going to do a keyframe here. And over the time, by the time it gets to the credits, it will be increased by, let's say, 4 decibels. Oh, there's a cow mooing in there too. I didn't notice that. So she's apparently out in the country. So I'm going to go to the end here. I'm going to deselect this file here, Control-Shift-A, make sure everything's deselected. Now do Control-Shift-D to add a crossfade. Maybe we make this more gradual fade out at the end. There we go. Okay, so now we got some ambient noise in there. Let's start adding sound effects. I'm going to make a little more room here for my tracks down here. Move this up so my video's on top because I'm not even using really my video. I'm not editing my video anymore. And I'm going to go to the beginning and we're going to start playing through this and see what sort of sound effects we need to add. I like the crickets at the beginning. And as it moves into her here, the first sound effect we hear is the knocking on glass. So I've got several knocks on glass. You can kind of go through and see which ones you like. I like that because it's kind of echoey, but there's only 2 of them, and I kind of like the 3. We could duplicate these. Let's give it a try. I'm going to drag this down inside. If you grab your little audio symbol here, you can actually either do your source patching and hit period, or you can grab this by the waveform and drag it drop down inside. Either way will work. Okay, so let's time this up here where she hears the knock. And that's a little early there, a little premature. So I can just grab this here. I can drag it down. Let's see where she looks up, where she responds. Right there. So let's have the knock a little bit before. Right there. And that's a really loud knock right there. So, and the end mirrored that she knocks like 4 times. So I might want to even duplicate these. Let's see if we can kind of duplicate these and make it knock several times. Make it knock 4 times. But first of all, let's get the volume down where we need it. And that's super loud. So I'm going to hit G for gain, and I'm going to hit negative. Let's go down about like 10 decibels so it's a little more subtle. Let's see how that sounds. Even a little more, just very subtle. G for gain, negative 4 more decibels, and let's see what that sounds like. And that's not too bad. But now that I've got this the way I like it, I'm going to actually cut this right here where the second knock happens, because I like this kind of second subtle sound here. And I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to hold down Alt and duplicate it, and then duplicate it again. So I've got 4 knocks. But I'm going to make this kind of happen a little quicker. By the way, so I've got this cut right here. I can just right-click and say Join Through Edits, and it gets rid of that cut. I'm going to move this over and make the pacing of the knocks here. Let's see. There's 3 and 1 more. That last one's a little too long, so right there. There we go. Okay, that sounded good. And I've got my first knock. So if you want to, you can either make new custom knocks for each one, or you can duplicate them. I'm going to copy this here. Control C to copy. And let's play through it here. There's the second knock right there because she looks up. So, by the way, I want to paste this down here. Watch what happens if I do Control V and paste. It pastes it up here. What you need to do is deactivate this track here, toggle, turn off the what's called the track targeting for this track, and I'm going to be pasting to this track. This is source patching. It's taking from the source. This is for copying and pasting within your timeline. So now I'm going to do Control V and paste. Let's see if the timing looks good on that. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit earlier. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select this, hold down Alt and arrow this over a few frames. I'm holding down Alt and arrowing over it. It moves it 1 frame at a time, left or right. Let's try that. And I like that there. That timing works out nicely. And we're going to work on footsteps here in a minute as well. I'm going to move through this and just get the knocks in. Since I'm on the knocking right now, I'm just going to get all the knocking in. 1 more here, Control V and paste. That works out well. The other 2 spots that needs to be put in is where she stands up and starts walking over, and then she hears the knocking come from her right-hand side. And it makes her stop. And she looks over. And then the knocking here, and we'll have to make sure that this knocking times up perfectly with her knocks on the glass here. So let's move this over. And that first knock, I'm going to get my first frame here, right where her fist hits the glass. Right there. And now I'm going to hold down Alt and shift this over till it lines up with my playhead on that first knock right there. So now when she knocks, there's the first one, and the second one happens right there. So we need to actually move this over. We need to cut right here, hit C for cut and cut it right there. Grab these 3 and Alt shift over. So when she knocks, boom, that's perfectly timed. That one actually timed out perfectly, and the 4th one needs to shift over. So I'm going to select this one. This one needs to shift over about 1 frame there. And I can fill in that gap there. There we go. So now when she knocks, then it works out, then it turns out perfectly there. So this one I might want a little bit louder because now she's closer. So I'm going to select all these. I'm going to gain them by 4 decibels and then see how that sounds. That sounds pretty good. All right, so what I'm also going to do here as well, I'm not going to show this because I've already kind of shown it. I'm going to time up the footsteps. I've got some subtle footsteps here as she's walking. So I've got some subtle footsteps here. So I'm going to find individual footsteps here, and let me show you how to line up one footstep, and then you guys can do the rest. First of all, I'm going to change my source patching to the next file, to the next layer down. I'm going to move this, shorten these up here so I have a little bit more room to work with, and Alt scroll over this one so I see what I'm doing. Okay, so when she gets up and she walks, and she takes a step, there's her first footstep right there. This one would make a little bit of a noise right there. Her foot hits the ground. I'm going to go up here and find a sound that I want. That sounds better right there. So first of all, I'm going to put I for endpoint, play through this. Those are kind of fast-paced footsteps. But I'm going to hit period and drop that down in my timeline. And we're going to zoom up to this. And we're going to get her first footstep hitting. Right about there, her heel hits the ground. I'm going to select this and hold Alt arrow to the left until I get it lined up with the playhead. And now her first heel will go, boom. And then the next one here. Actually, that's like a frame off. So what you can do is cut this right here before the sound happens. Select this and Alt arrow over. There we go. And I'm going to keep doing that. Now I'm going to line up all the footsteps. And after you're done, you basically select them all, hit G for gain, and turn it down or turn it up as needed. And that's the sound mixing. But I'm going to add a couple more sound effects, and then I'm going to come back and show you. I'm going to add some dog barking outside, some other ambient noise, and then come back and show you kind of a sound mix here, and show you kind of all the sound mix that I have. All right, I've got some footsteps lined up on the parts where she walks back and forth. Let's see here. We've also got outside when she leans outside. She's got this dog barks, very loud and obvious. So I'm going to select that and hit gain, and I'm going to go negative. We'll turn that down about negative 14 decibels, quite a bit. Just want it to be subtle, and even a little more subtle. Gain negative 6. And now we can actually assign this. This is kind of cool. Actually assign this as a sound effect here, and you can go to reverb, and we can go down and say this is outside reverb and make it a little bit more sound like it's kind of echoey from outside. And that's too much. You can turn this down a little bit. Let's go down to 3 and see what that sounds like. See, and that sounds really good there, so maybe just a little more subtle. So that's why I like these essential sound features. These are really nice and automated features. There we go, and now just gain that, negative maybe 4 down, and now we got a really subtle dog barking as she looks out the window. You can do the same to the outside crickets, do it as sound effects, turn on the reverb and make it outside reverb, and we're going to turn that down to maybe about 2 as well. And just very subtle, but adds a nice little kind of texture to it. So I do that the same to the footsteps as well. Footsteps, we made those make those sound effects, and I'm going to make those just regular indoor, just regular room reverb. Now as I play through this, a little too loud, do gain, negative 4, bring down the footsteps until those sound good. There we go. Okay, so once you get all your sound effects done, once you've gotten in your ambient noise, your sound effects, you assign them as like what type of effect they're over here, and you've got those your levels leveled out, and it sounds nice based on your negative 12 dynamic range. Like I said, loud noises are going to be anywhere between like negative 12 is like more your average dialogue listening level, up to maybe negative 9, negative 6 at the most if they get really loud, and then like gunshots, explosions up here. You have like I said, you have a larger dynamic range for surround sound. But we're in a stereo environment. Okay, so next you're going to do is you're going to find music. And what I recommend for music, if you're just getting free music online, a good place to go is incompetech.com. Incompetech.com, make sure you don't misspell it because it takes you to some weird other websites, but that's the way you spell it right there. And I'm going to go to royalty-free music. They have a really nice section on film, where they got the modern cinematic here. They've got and a nice horror section here. And you play some of these here. They have some nice creepy music here. And what I would recommend doing, because when you use this music, you have to you have to credit the artist here. So I'm going to hit the download tab. It'll bring open this little window and it will say choose free license here. And if you choose a free license, if you use extended license, if you're using it for commercial purposes, he's really affordable actually for a musician. He's got some decent stuff. But if you hit choose free license, you have to copy and paste this right here and use that in your credits. So if you're going to use this, you're going to post it online, you're going to do it on a film festival, you will copy that, paste it, put it into your credits. I will usually open a Word document and paste all these in there that I'm using. You agree to the terms, and then it will download your music. Then you'll copy and paste that into your production folder, under a new folder called Music or something like that, and import them into Premiere. So I'm going to go through and find a couple of these things, and I'll come back and show you my music selections here. Okay, I have imported my music. I've got my music folder right here. These are some selections I got off of Incompetech. And we're going to start here. What I want to do at the beginning, let's see, as we play through the beginning of the movie, I kind of like where it starts out with just the cricket noises in the background and no music yet. So we fade into this and perhaps we start the music right where she hears the knock on the window. All right, so I've gone through some of these and I kind of like this Welcome to Horrorland here. And within this, I went through it. I'm not going to start with the very beginning of this. It starts out with really scary music. I want something kind of a little more subtle. I went through this and found this little portion right here that would be nice to start with. Right here, I like this little swell right there. So I'm going to start it like right there. I'm going to put an endpoint in there. I'm going to play this a little ways into it, maybe about right to there. And I'm going to put an out point, just kind of an arbitrary out point right now. And then I'm going to, we need to create a new soundtrack here for the music. So I'm going to right click down here and say add track. And it's going to add an extra track down below. I'm going to make this one a little smaller, the sound effects one, and make my music track a little larger so I can kind of see the waveforms. All right, so I'm going to grab this. I'm just going to drag and drop it down here right around the knock. And now when the knock happens, this starts suddenly right here. So what I want to do is I'm going to select this clip here. Actually, let's activate this track down here. I'm going to arrow up to it right here. I'm going to deactivate these ones, so I'm just kind of working only on the music track here. Control-Shift-A to deselect everything. Control-Shift-D or Command-Shift-D to add the crossfade. So now when the knock happens, that fades in. It sounds like the music starts. And then as she looks down here, I want the music to kind of fade out and then start again when the knock happens. So as she fades down here, as she looks down here, I'm just going to do Control, click, and add a keyframe, and this is going to turn down as she kind of looks back down to her book. So the music kind of calms down. Let's make that a little more subtle there over time. Drag that keyframe, make it more subtle. Got this gradual. Okay, she looks down, then all of a sudden the knock happens again, and I can Control, click, and add a fade back in there. Maybe make this one a little quieter, a little more subtle, and then when it happens the second time, then it's a little louder. Let's see how that sounds. Subtle music. There we go, and you got that creepy music playing throughout as she goes and looks out the window. Then as she walks back in, starts walking back toward her seat, we could just kind of gradually fade this out. There we go. Cool. So this is kind of a way of mixing music that's canned music that's already created, that wasn't necessarily written for this, but just kind of general theme music. You're making it work here by bringing in the beats when they need to happen, the scary moments, and with those cues. All right, and then as time moves along here and the knock happens again, then she starts getting kind of mad, and maybe the tone can change a little bit. I've got another different file here that kind of changes tone, gets a little more dark, a little more ominous. I'm going to have this start when the next knock happens. So I'm just going to put, I like the endpoint on this, it gradually fades in, so I'm not going to put an endpoint, I'm going to put an arbitrary out point, drag this down in, and we'll figure out where we want that to end. So when the next knock happens, maybe a little bit sooner there. Cue the music a little sooner. And let's turn that down a little bit. A little too loud here. A little more subtle. And maybe have it fade out when she kind of sits down. When we do this kind of jump cut to her sitting back down. She's back to her book. And there you go. So that's what I'm going to do with the music now is I'm just going to be kind of cutting music in and out, turning it down where it needs to, turning it up. And you can do kind of those soft transitions in between files as well. And one thing I'm going to do here is at the end, I want to do what's called back timing here because I'm going to find this file here, this Unseen Horror. I like the way it ends. It kind of ends with, like, listen to this. It builds up. I think that would be perfect to where she knocks on the glass. I want this to end right there where she knocks on the glass. This little, and then knock, knock, knock. Knocks on the mirror, I should say, when we finally see her, they reveal that she's in the mirror. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab this portion right here, in point, out point. I'm going to grab that and I'm going to drop it down in my timeline. And I've got it assigned for this, actually source patching. I'm going to put it down on this music track right there. And I'm going to put that right about here, right before she knocks. I'm going to hit period, drop that down in, and get this to where, let's get this timed up so when she knocks, I like that. Okay. So from the rest here, we're going to back time this audio and find out where to start this music again. I like that. Okay, that's good. And I'm going to turn this knock up a little bit. Let's see what, and by the way, if you want to hit like solo right here, it'll solo just that track and you see how high the levels are on just that track. See, in that, I could turn that up maybe another 2 decibels. I'm going to hit gain by 2 decibels. M will mute a track and S will solo a track. So if you put them both on, will the computer explode? I don't know. It just mutes it. When the mute's on, it kills the solo. So yeah, solo will play just that track and nothing else. And you can solo multiple tracks, even though solo implies only one track. Now it will solo both this track and this track. So if you want to hear them together, and you can hear the crickets along with the knocking, just to hear just a couple of the tracks there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to back time this now because I want this music to start again when it knocks again. That seems to be the cue is when when the knocking happens on the window there. So I'm going to get it a little bit into the knocking there. I'm going to arrow down, let's do a fade in, Control Shift D here to fade in there. And let's listen to this when it starts knocking. And actually that cue works nicely. Then the danger music starts because now she realizes it's not in the window. And we play through. And it builds, and I like it. And then the crickets come up, chirping galore. The only thing I need to put on here is credit Incompetech for the music that I've used, and we'd be good. So there we go. Okay, so that's basic sound mixing there. We basically went through and corrected all the levels here, got rid of the unwanted noises, did those smooth out crossfades through the audio there to smooth things out. Then we went through and added our ambient tracks with the, if you have room tone, you can add room tone. In this instance, I just used the room tone from the actual audio, but then I used the cricket noise here throughout, then added some sound effects, some footsteps, or knocking on the glass, then the sound effects with the footsteps, and there could be other things that you want to add in there, and then we did the music track. All right, well, with the next episode, since this is all kind of done, we're going to start going through color grading next episode. That's what we're going to be doing next to kind of finalize this and get it finished, is to go through and do a color grade on this because this footage is looking awful kind of flat right now. So we're going to fix that up and give a really nice look to it. Just so you can kind of hear the final sound mix. It's already been, the one I'm going to be showing you is graded. If you don't want to watch it, you don't have to, but I'm going to include that here at the end, and then you can watch through it and see kind of how that sound mix turned out.